This is TWiT.
Bloomberg is reporting that the European Commission has looked into Microsoft's unusual partnership with OpenAI and has determined that it does not warrant a formal probe because Microsoft doesn't actually have control over the direction of OpenAI. And it is, for all of its unusualness. So yeah, I mean, like we said, when this came up originally, I think the EU, the UK CMA, and maybe the US government have all said that we need to look at this. And yes, this is the role of these regulatory bodies. It's fair to say
they didn't go further. Like, it's perfectly reason to come down and say, okay, they don't have control over it. But this is like, we're just walking away. They barely got started.
Yeah. Well, OpenAI is free to partner with other companies. They meet certain milestones. They could walk away from Microsoft forever.
Sure. And Microsoft has partnered with a bunch of other companies.
Yes. And those feel strategic, right? In some ways.
I do think one would argue somewhere in Brad Smith's org, this fact that they've walked away from this is like, did it, right? We positioned ourselves sufficiently to have them leave.
And that's smart just for the company, but it's also smart for appearances with regards to regulators and so forth. So I don't know if I don't really have much of an opinion on whether this, I feel like the EU, the European Commission, is responsible and typically does the right thing. If that makes sense with regards to what they choose to fight, not fight. I mean, it's also a top heavy bureaucracy where everything takes a million years to have anything happen, but good. Okay. Anyway, that's fine. We're going to talk about the Steven Sinofsky book, Hardcore Software, at the end of the show. I should have taken notes the first time I read it. I've reread parts of it several times, oddly. Just to deal with my own form of PTSD, I actually read the book in reverse order, meaning I started with the end of it and went backward in time.
Do not read the chapters backwards, but you're reading the sections,
I would say. Yeah. So if the final section, which deals with Windows 8, has whatever 4 or 5 chapters, I read those in order and then read the previous section.
Went back. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, a lot came out of this, but of course, and like I said, I should have taken notes. I feel like I'm gonna have a series of articles that come out of this aside from the review. But of course, he brings up these things that all of us remember well and have our own perspectives on. And one of them was this notion of embrace and extend, which is contorted into other things.
Embrace, extend, extinguish.
Yeah. Yes. And there's a whole history there. This phrase, I think, is completely misunderstood out in the broader world, but including by me back in the day, like everyone else, because you're just a victim of the information you have. But it occurred to me that the formalization of this, the thing that made this eventually come out in like a public kind of a way was the antitrust trial that Microsoft had in the US government. So all these internal documents came out. Everyone's freaking out. Oh my God, they're talking about cutting off life supply. It's a terrible company. And it's like, no, it's just a company. They just compete. Yeah. That's how people talk. Yeah. And we got a little too caught up in that stuff. The interesting thing is, I don't think anyone's ever said this, but Bill Gates used to use the phrase internally, embrace and extend, all the time. And so when Jay Allard, the guy who wrote Windows should be the killer app of the internet, wrote that memo, he used the phrase, he played off that knowing it would get his attention because he was trying to get this guy to wake up and actually embrace the internet.
Right.
And he called it embrace, extend, and innovate. And if you read this memo, if you read especially the parts that deal with this, it's not malicious. It really is talking
and this
about
was
working
Silverberg,
with
right? That's how far back
this is Jay Allard.
Jay Allard, okay.
It makes sense. It's pragmatic. It's not really nefarious. No. And whatever they did. I mean, Microsoft did some horrible things. I'm not downplaying that.
Yeah,
but in reading this, I thought to myself, this sounds familiar. And it sounds a little bit like, none of these comparisons are ever perfect. It's not like lining up DNA when you're like a CSI guy, but it sounds a little bit like the AI inside, AI outside, AI, whatever the third one is, strategy.
Inside, outside, yeah.
Inside, beside, inside, outside, yeah. That Stevie Batiste talked about last year. Now, the big difference is that the Jay Allard memo, Embrace, Extend, Innovate, was literally a 3-phase step 1 first, step 2 next, step 3, and then we arrive at our end goal. But whereas the Stevie Batish Microsoft thing today is these things are going to overlap, and they do. We already have those examples.
Yeah.
We have literal Copilot UI next to Microsoft Word, next to Windows, whatever it might be, and we have the AI inside apps like Clipchamp and Designer we just talked about, right? So we're getting there. And I hinted, I invented, but maybe I might see the hint of the beginning of that third app structure in these announcements they're making about Photos and Designer, which seem innocuous on the surface because they are, but could lead to that. Or what he's talking about is AI as an orchestrator taking over the role of what Windows today is, or an OS.
Right.
So kind of fascinated by that, and the similarities may be due to the fact that this is how the big software company gets from one place to another. I mean, this may be this may be the way it always is. Maybe sometimes there's 4 steps or 2, or maybe, whatever. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And it might not, but it may, in the same way that I see the tiger in the grass, it may put it in some sense of historical perspective or not. But I thought I was fascinated by the parallels. So I threw it out there.
Hey, it's me, Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little snippet from Windows Weekly. If you want to see more and want to catch the whole show, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client or visit our website, twit.tv/WW. And of course, there's links right below me.